welcome to LawWiser's Let's Get Real series. For the next couple of weeks, we're going to be having dialogues around mental health care and awareness in the legal profession. The theme for today's panel discussion is stigma surrounding mental health in the legal industry. A big thank you before we start to the amazing speakers who have joined us today. And I'm going to do a very quick round of introductions before we get into the detailed discussion. So the first speaker we have with us today is Chris Parsons. Hi, Chris. He is the chairman of the India practice and also mental well-being champion at Herbert Freehills. Then we have with us Dr. Milind Antani. Hi, Doc. He is a surgeon turned lawyer, and now he leads the pharma and healthcare practice at Nishith Desai Associates. Then we have with us Seb. So Seb Jauslin is founder of sebjauslin.com, and he is an ex-Big Four lawyer turned 10x therapist and speaker. And hi, Seb. And then we have with us Jigyasa. Jigyasa is a mental health educationist from Nimhans, Bangalore, and she's a counseling psychologist with experience in sensitive groups in the judicial system. So Jigyasa, hi, and since you've kindly agreed to moderate, I'm going to, basically move over to you, and the floor is open, and let's get started.
Yes, that's awesome. And I welcome all the speakers, and, thank you for being with us, with LawWisers, and coming to discuss about mental health. I think it's very, very important, especially in the area of legal fraternity and law firms, because stress lawyers undergo is massive. And surprisingly, there's a fun fact here that law and psychology, or mental health per se, has a lot in common in terms of terminology, like counsel, client, and the idea that we are dealing with human problems. So with this, let's kickstart our program, and let's have a discussion based on mental health. So with this, I'll introduce my first question. Can we go back to basics and understand what mental health really means? How would you describe mental health if you come across somebody? Yes, so who wants to start? Maybe Chris, you can start.
Yeah, sure. Look, thanks very much, and thanks for involving me in this. I guess to me, the way I tend to explain it is that we all have mental health, just as we all have physical health, and I'm sure as people could describe where they are on a scale of 0 to 100 in terms of their physical health at the moment. If we think about it carefully, and it's obviously more challenging to do that, we can also have a sense of where we are on that scale in terms of our mental health. So it's not something that either we have good mental health or bad mental health. We all have mental health all of the time, and it's recognizing where we are on that scale. And in an ideal world, just as we are with our physical health, we want to be in a better place from a mental health point of view, because it means that we can live more fulfilling lives and be more effective in the jobs that we do. So that's my sense of it.
Thank you, Chris. Moving on to Milind, sir. So since you are a doc, and then you are a pharma lawyer, and then you are practicing in India, what mental health stands for you? You have so many, areas to speak from.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Chris just mentioned. And whether you are a doctor, or you are a lawyer, or you are a practitioner, or you are a speaker like Seb is, mental health is a constant thing, And as Chris very rightly said, that end of the day, what matters is leading a happy life, And what we are seeing, unfortunately, that when you talk mental health, the perception is negativity. Mental health is a very positive thing. If you have a proper mental health, which everybody has, as Chris rightly mentioned. I was a surgeon for 14 years, and there was an anxiety, there was a stress. I'm a lawyer for last 18 years. There has been an anxiety, there has been a stress, but ultimately it is my proper head on the shoulders that Chris mentioned about the physical part is the shoulder and the head. but the mind is how I perceive my life, perceive myself, and how I believe in myself, which is going to help me lead happy, comfortable, satisfied life, is what I believe is the mental health.
Indeed, indeed. Yes. So taking from that, like, that yes, anxiety is very common, stress is very common. It's just that we need that, and they are actually helping points for optimal functioning. And if we do not experience them, we might not able to take an action. So it's very, very important, but it's just that we need to be at optimal level. With this, I move to Seb. That, Seb, what is your idea? You recently have shifted your career to mental health. What do you think? Like, what made you do that also?
Well, for me, thank you to both Chris and Dr. Milind for their intervention. I agree with what has been said, especially the holistic approach of having physical and mental health. I feel that we talk very easily about physical health, that it should be good, but a lot less about mental health. And I like to see both under health, and they're both very important for me. I think it's an essential pillar in anybody's life to have good physical and mental health, because if you don't have that, everything else falls apart. You can have a career, you can have money, you can have relationships, but if you don't have health, all the rest becomes meaningless. And so for me, physical and mental health is about being able to use your full potential in every aspect of your life.
Beautiful. That's what WHO also says, like, that the person has to be, productive. The person has to know the coping strategies to ensure well-being. The person has to be contributing to the society because, we are humans, and we humans are social beings. So we do not exist in isolation. We always exist in relation to people. So yes, we have to contribute to the society. And yes, it's a state of mind which always, directs us better and directs our actions and behaviors better, right? So that's beautifully, summarized by all of you. Brings me to my second question, where, how Dr. Antani mentioned that, the moment we say mental health, everybody becomes very irate, confused, they have a very uninterested attitude. And there's a lot of foundation of stigma around it. So what is your thoughts about this? Like, what is this phenomena like? Why do we have so much of negativity where mental health stands for all positive actions? Yes, so let's go opposite this time.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, let's go opposite this time. So Seb, yeah, this is exactly driving from your your expression of mental health. I'll just,
Yes, sure. Thank you. For me, I think that I'll speak about Europe and what I feel is happening in Europe, because that's the area of the world that I'm most familiar with. But I feel that unfortunately, historically, mental health has been seen as something negative and probably associated with more serious mental illnesses, which is why we probably see it as something negative. But I'm happy to see that it's changing, and this is probably one of the very positive things that the pandemic brought.
Right, that's true. Yes, sir. Doctor, I'll call you Doc, okay?
Yeah, Doc is fine. Perfect. Everybody calls me that. Yeah.
Yeah. So Doc, you tell me, like.
Yeah, I think it's a very
as well.
So I have a very interesting and very important question, especially from India perspective, where I've grown and spent almost 58 years of my life. Unfortunately, mental health per se is seen in a very negative balance, by and large. That he is mad. He doesn't have senses. I have a surgeon in me alive also. So I see organic as well as inorganic part. And I don't want to touch upon organic element of the mental. I don't want to go to schizophrenias and ADHD and all those things, bipolars, which is an organic disorder, which is manageable. But there you require medications supported by the tender care, let me put it that way. But what I really want to touch upon to answer your question is the inorganic part or the functional part.
Right.
And not, I'm going beyond mental health. I say it is more of a mental health challenges or person who is expressing something which is not accepted by people at large. And that's why I say India is a mammoth country, and so many religions, so many castes, and everybody is significantly driven by a lot of external factors. I'm going to touch upon when we manage how to take it. But unfortunately, the problem here is lack of awareness, number one. Number two, lack of awareness is led to lack of training. And when I say training, it is not formal training. Even the parent passing on the training to their children, how to look at like simple anxiety and stress, it is like we are talking about legal profession. It's a part and parcel. I decided I will sleep at least 8 hours, but I could not because I had to finish one document. So I slept at 4 a.m. and Chris will agree to me. Such things. One deal is closing tomorrow. So but that is what I'm trying to say, that as far as India, not India, I think Sev also very rightly mentioned that it is how people perceive you. And that is where there's a lot of negative perception about having any mental challenge, whether it is anxiety, depression, etc. But I think the time is changing in India with a lot of celebrities coming out that I did suffer from depressions and sharing information. I think that is what I think is going to really change the perception. But otherwise, till then, I think all mental health challenges are going to be seen in a very negative way by and large by the people here.
Right. That's true. That's true. Chris, I just like driving from Antani's sir's message, like the last line that he said, that celebrities coming out and talking about it, and mental health well-being not being overlooked by mental health challenges. What would be your thoughts about it, since you have been an advocate, active one about the same?
Yeah, thanks. Look, just a few comments. I mean, I think people have been concerned about mental ill health because it's not understood, it can't be seen. And actually, in many respects, research has not been able to completely understand what happens in the brain to understand what might mean that somebody has some challenges. And because it's not understood, it's feared, and people are concerned about it. And as Seb has rightly said, the stigma is reducing in Europe, and that varies by geography. It varies by class structure. It varies by profession, etc. And I certainly can comment from a personal point of view that when I first struggled with stress, anxiety, and depression in a very significant way in the mid-1990s in London, nobody was talking about it. And the last thing I wanted to do was to talk about it because I was terrified as to how people would perceive me. And as lawyers, we need our brains to be able to work. And if somehow my brain was misfunctioning, that was a major problem. So that was a concern to me. So the way the narrative worked was that people said, oh, Chris is working too hard. He needs to recharge his batteries. But the reality was, of course, it wasn't my batteries that needed. I'd had a full breakdown in essence, and I was really very ill. And I remember my psychiatrist saying to me, Chris, it's like you've had a heart attack, a very major heart attack, and you need help to recover from this, and that needs to take place over time with care, with medication, etc. Now, I've been fortunate in that I've been working in India for the last 16 years as chairman of our India practice, and I know, as the doc has mentioned, that there is a negative story in India, as there is in fact in many countries in Asia. But I hope and believe that will change. And so what we've got is just a cultural difference for the moment. And that there are two aspects for me that are relevant in India. One is the very positive aspect of the extended family, where there's support and community, etc. The flip side of that is that you have comments that I've heard many, many times, which is, please don't bring shame on the family. Please don't talk about mental ill health outside the family. Please, it will pass. Do some yoga, do some puja, make a payment to the temple, and it will get better. And of course, it doesn't always get better, and that's obviously heartbreaking. And so, and I just finished with this. The key for me is around awareness. And as soon as people can understand that mental ill health is incredibly common, as soon as people can properly understand that mental ill health is really, really serious and needs proper support to help people, the better. And the only way we can drive awareness is by people who've struggled with mental ill health, but are currently in a good place talking about it. So that the big message that I would share today is, to the extent you feel comfortable, people who are listening to this can feel comfortable in sharing it with people that they trust, the better it will be in terms of reducing levels of stigma.
Beautiful, beautiful. I mean, I can't have what I'm so stunned right now with that description, that, because I solely believe that way. And I feel that, our culture, somewhere or the other, is stopping us correct socialization, where we can actually transfer the correct skills to manage mental health, at a larger stage, so that it becomes not just one or two, individuals, but a community, helping and moving it forward. And, once I feel that, once you are not progressive, or you feel stuck somewhere, it's actually this idea that you educate yourself there, and then you might move forward. And that's exactly why I chose mental health education, because I wanted people to have capacities, to be involved in it, to be more concentrated on that idea, right? So coming to the specific questions, Krista, you rightly educated about this fact that we need more education and we need more cultural appropriation. But when it comes to the field of law, which is large, it's humongous, I would say. Law is a field which, occupies a lot of human stress. Like while you are talking, whether the transaction is happening, not happening, litigation, within the firm itself, dealing with documents late at night. So, do you think that a person who is well versed with the life skills, life communication, managing stress, empathetic attitude can help manage these situations a little better? Training is kind of missing, and should be more inclusive to make things more, diverse and inclusive for people. What are your thoughts about it?
So just a few thoughts on that. I mean, the first one is that I've seen research, at least in the UK, and I have no reason to believe this wouldn't be relevant right across the world, is that sadly lawyers outperform the rest of society when it comes to struggling with mental ill health. Not by a significant margin, but certainly by a margin. And I think that is for a number of reasons. One is clearly law is a stressful, challenging job, is number one. Two, I think it attracts perfectionists, and perfectionists struggle when things don't always go perfectly right. And the third aspect is that it's the nature of the profession that you often need to think about, what will happen when things go wrong. And so you're always challenging the business people, the client or whatever, to say, well, look, that's fine if things go smoothly, but what about what will happen if things go wrong? So we're also trained to look at the negatives. And we know that the documents that we draft or are advising on will only be properly looked at again if there's a problem. And so we're always trying to think through the sort of negatives. And I think that lends itself to a profession that will struggle potentially with stress and anxiety, leading through to sort of more serious issues. So that's the first point I'd make. The second point I'd make is that I would love there to be a greater understanding, and actually I would have it starting at school. Certainly I talk to my kids about it, and I would love there to be sessions built into any university study. And certainly I think there's an obligation on firms themselves to share messaging around mental health. And what would those messages be? Number one, they would be that mental ill health is incredibly common. In fact, it's the biggest cause of disability in the world today. I saw some data from the World Health Organization that suggested 2 billion people a year struggled with mental ill health. Now that's 1 in 4 of us every single year that will struggle with some kind of mental ill health. The second point I would love people to properly understand is that mental ill health can be incredibly serious. And, you know, I understand from my own experience that when I am in a deep depression, I want to go to sleep and not wake up. And, you know, that's where it can take you. And so for people to understand that, you know, we can all sympathize rightly with people who have cancer or multiple sclerosis or some other serious medical issue. But because we don't understand it as much, we are sometimes less sympathetic towards somebody with mental ill health issues. The third thing I'd love people to learn about is around resilience and things we can do to look after ourselves. And the fourth thing is I would love senior management within organizations to properly understand that if they run an open, supportive, humanitarian organization, there is really strong data to support the fact that those organizations can outperform organizations that are less supportive, are less helpful, are less open, etc. So there's a good business reason for educating and supporting the teams of people that work with us.
That is like amazing, sir. Like resilience and well-being is like the new areas that we really need to concentrate on. And I think you have directly, highlighted that sensitive point which needs attention through your, through your points. And I feel great that, somebody from the field being there aggressively working is speaking all of this for the rest of the community. And that's really, really positive. And I think India is no different with this kind of attitude. And we really require, university, school, plus, within the profession also, like after a few years, like to upgrade ourselves, like how we upgrade our credit cards and other, points. So yeah, that is something which I feel is required. Moving from here, I'll go to Seb. Okay. Seb, I find your transition very interesting, honestly, because there are very few people who do that. And, you have been closely being in both law and mental health. And we see that there's a lot in common, right? There are people's professions, similar terminologies, as I said, client and counsel, and, how they interact. So both, they both deal with human problems. One has to argue to resort, and one has to use the way of therapy, like, giving an guided insight and then letting them to find their own solution somewhere or the other. What is your idea about law and mental health going to and fro? And do they share a positive or a negative relationship? What is your idea about it?
Thank you. And maybe I can start with why I transitioned, because I'm sure a lot of listeners here are interested in that. And it wasn't just by chance, obviously. I'm very impressed with what Chris shared, and I can relate to a lot of what has been said. You know, I grew up and I was educated in Switzerland. I studied law in Switzerland, which is also a very conventional country. We spoke about not bringing shame to the family. That is also something that I experienced myself in my own family. And everybody in my family was a doctor, and I didn't really feel like I wanted to go down that line. So I did the other thing that was equally respected, which was law. And then I was expected to become a very successful lawyer. I moved from Geneva to Zurich for work, made it to the Big Four, and then I had a burnout. And I never imagined that I, Sebastian Jauslin, would have a burnout, because my preconception of mental health problems was that it was for the weak. And when I went through it, that's when I realized that it can happen to anybody. And it was a very, very lonely place to be, because I couldn't speak about it to my family, and I couldn't speak about it at work, because, and this is where we come to the relationship between mental health and law, because it was seen as a weakness. And I had no other choice but to leave that environment to recover. And I love the image that Chris gave about having a violent heart attack, because this is exactly what it felt like. And I remember specifically the day when I burnt out, because I went to work and I wasn't able to switch on my computer, which is something that I had been doing, you know, for years without even thinking. Well, on that day, I could not switch on my computer. And this is when I had to go home, saw a psychiatrist, and they said to me, you need to stop now because you're in danger. And the experience transformed me. And that's when I really felt I don't want to let people who go through such an experience alone. And so I made it kind of my mission to now help people who go through this and to speak about it, so we raise awareness around that. So the relationship, I think, is huge, but unfortunately it's not positive, because mental health is seen as a weakness in the corporate world, and even more in the legal industry, because lawyers and even doctors, so all these professions that are socially very respected and that have that, you know, that equal status, it's not good to show weakness in those professions. And this is what I think should really change everywhere in the world, you know, not only in Asia. I'm experiencing this in Switzerland and in Europe. So I think it's really a worldwide issue that we have here.
Right. That's actually quite a word I would take, because yeah, weakness is always attached to mental health. And you know, I will just say that if you decode mental health, I'm just giving a perspective which I believe strongly in. So I am using men here with gender irrespective. So men telling stories to heal, basically, can be another form of understanding mental health. And basically it's, so people usually confuse between mental health illnesses, and mental health well-being, where illness is just 20 to 25%, well-being stands a lot. And mental health is basically not only a state which I described according to WHO, but it is also a capacity umbrella, where we have psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, psychiatric social workers, even nurses and pharmacologists coming together to form an industry of its own, where, you know, each can be a peer to each other, and then we have peer support to address this. And I think no better than Dr. Antani can help us with this idea, because he had this whole transition from, you know, being a surgeon, basically, where he mentioned about the organic stuff, you know, of medicating somebody. But he also mentioned that the inorganic aspect, which is all about well-being, which we are kind of missing the point, and which is where I want to ask you from your current experience, considering that you are working in pharma law, pharma law firm, and you're closing transactions every day almost with this idea. What if I reverse the role of not addressing mental health, but addressing law in mental health, right? What will be a better way to practice it, and better way of conditioning it from that perspective? Like, what will be your ideology, since you have a lot of experience coming from there?
I think it's a very important point, but I can answer maybe in a one line of 2 or 3 words. When you say law, are you talking about legislation? Some act? In that case, those acts would not assist anyone in combating the menace of stigma in mental health, in any profession for that matter. Seb just mentioned about doctor and lawyer. Unfortunately, I am both. And while I was operating my patients, I had an anxiety that whether this patient is going to come out of general anesthesia or not after my surgery is over. And that stress, I tell you, I'm sure Chris would agree to me, that stress to some extent was a comfortable stress compared to the stress a lawyer in a law firm faces, that if I mess up something in this transaction, it's going to be a big thing for my client. Now, a lot of people don't agree to this when I discuss with my colleagues, but the stress for a doctor, there is a confidence. Same thing, confidence is there. So to answer your question, legislation per se, no. It doesn't have direct role to manage the mental health problem or a stigma associated with it. Is a legal profession. But yes, a time, like for example, India had an act called Chris Mental, I'm sure you know that. It was a Mental Health Act, which in 2017 became Mental Health Care Act. And I was just real because we do a lot of work in mental health act related work also. But if you see, it just talks about certain definitions and certain sections, which is not going to help the problem which we are facing in legal profession. And how I see that, unless a specific code of work ethic in a legal profession is developed, either through a self-regulatory policy or binding policy under law, which is not very easy, at least in India. And I think Chris and Save also would agree that nowhere in the world there are specific laws which would kind of help fighting this menace or stigma of mental health. Because I personally feel it is always either external or internal. I'm just going to legal profession and jumping from a medical profession. That I always see it internal and external, honestly speaking. And always there is a deadline, which is yesterday in law firm. You touched upon litigating lawyer and transactional. I don't want to go into that. I'm going purely, there is an inherent stress, and if you see the statistics, after HR professionals, lawyers are the second most exposed to the stress in the world. Right or wrong, I don't know. Medical profession is out. I don't know why, but I'm happy for that. So we have to manage internal and external, because unless external factors, which Chris very rightly mentioned about senior management, is going to play a role. And at the same time, unless a lawyer himself or herself does not think of augmenting his or her mental well-being, problem is going to be there. It's like difference between sympathy and empathy. Like person with sympathy says, I know how you feel. Whereas person with empathy says, I feel how you feel. So this empathy element needs to come in the legal profession, whether it is a law firm or not. And that is where I would just sum up this into 3 parts. We have to focus on what, why, and how. What is really causing this problem? It is external influences creating problems to internal disturbances which are there, and that is going to create a synergistic negative influence creating some problem. And what should be done? There are certain ways in legal professions you can do. If you allow me, I can give you quick examples of what we have done, not necessarily during COVID time, because anxiety and stress possibly was reduced. Working from home, we made Chris, our law firm, perpetually working from home. Go to office if you feel like that too, not more than twice a month. That is what we have done it. We have given up to offices also. But apart from that, I think certain things that really play apart from, see, working on a client matter and a transaction, burning midnight oils doesn't give stress. It does give stress, not at all. Not that I'm saying, but it is sometimes how you have to do. And that is where, can I give quick examples of our firm, what we have done?
Sure, so why not? Sure, so
1 minute, I won't take more than a minute. So, let me share, we do not have partnership structure. I was a partner till maybe 2016, 17, then we removed, there is no partner, everybody is a lawyer, everybody is a leader, everybody is given some micro monopolies. I happen to be a senior guy, 20 years in the law firm, fine. Apart from that, we removed revenue targets for any senior layers or any industry practice or any practice area, like corporate practice group doesn't have revenue target. I'm a pharma industry guy. I don't have a set revenue target which I have to achieve. No, there is no revenue target to anybody. There is no leave policy. Nobody in the law firm has to approach anybody that, can I take leave on this date? Message is, if you feel you cannot come to the office, don't come. But see that you inform somebody whom you trust. And that's why we don't have my business card and the fresher which I recruited 10 days ago and our founders Nishith Desai's business card are same. We don't have hierarchy. We create designations as and when required. So I was trying, and interestingly, the biggest challenge which I think Chris and Seb both mentioned, we faced was COVID times. We recruited 23 new recruits in the firm from during 2020 and first 3 months. So our biggest challenge was there was no FaceTime because everybody is working from home. And we are a very young law firm. So 30% of our professionals, I'm the oldest in the firm at 58, are not double vaccinated. So they can't go to office because being a doctor, I said nobody goes to office unless you are double vaccinated and 2 weeks are over. So what I and Nishith Desai created, I created something called Dil Se Dialogue, which is a dialogue straight from heart. So I pick up new recruits and senior recruits together, and I every Wednesday have 1 hour talk where we talk everything other than the law, which has given them so much of comfort. So that is where I think, that internal factor which really we could create. Yes, stress, burnout is fine. That is going to happen. But that will not cause depression because a lot of, unless and until additional internal things touch your external influences, it is not going to work. And that is why I say laws are there, but won't help you remove the stigmas. You need to create some policies, code of ethics or code of work that is going to help us. Sorry, I went long.
No, sir, you are particularly right. I just want to highlight 2 or 3 things from mental health professional perspective. That one, the idea that I agree that you haven't have a structure, but you still have a structure that is not apparent to people, but then you still maintain it. That is very, very much important these days. Because if people say we all like all kind of things about freedom, but too much freedom. So human values are very, very important to restructure how we live. So, too much of freedom or outgrowing freedom can also be dangerous to anybody's mental health and mental structure, right? So we need to have a structure where we help people identify where they belong, where they are, who they want to be, and how they want to grow. But this does not reduce them to less of human, fresh note from the back. That's what I commonly say. And like how you mentioned that you had a Dil Se program where everything else was being talked about, and and people were just feeling better because of it. I think COVID actually, why high level of mental health issues were seen in COVID, because nobody had expected it at the first moment. It was uncertain, which made, and people were not ready to believe into something like, mental health issues or mental health difficulties or challenges before this. because everybody was like, that, okay, fine, okay, I can understand this, that. But when it came to everybody, and everybody did not know that how to do it, there were some people who were doing it very good. And there were actually people who were taking therapy and were, all were trained in some or the other manner. So I would like to appreciate that group also, which has been overlooked by many people as good into COVID, and they did outgrow well. And some people did use the COVID time to grow well. I was being one of them. Like, I could some goals which I wanted to achieve. And just in with your line of thought, even I had man halka kar. So lighten your mind or soul or brain or whatever, you can just attach synonyms to mental health for legal fraternity. So, like we used to meet, we used to talk about one mental health topic, like emotions or something like that. And used to have a discussion about it among the lawyers and law professors, students, even in fact, media students, or law journalists, they all used to come. It was a good webinar time, and we were successfully finishing 6 months of it. So that was another thing that I did. And I just got a message that I won Indian Achievers Award for Women Empowerment in the field of mental health education. So just sharing that. So with this, let's have a quick round of strategic management from each one of you. Like, what will you suggest the audience to take away? Like, what they can do from this point forward? So, Chris, we'll start with you.
Just two quick thoughts, really. Is number one, which I'd mentioned previously, is that I would love people listening to this to find a safe space, some friends, and to talk about some of the issues that they've heard. And the more people talk about it, the greater the awareness. The greater the awareness, the reduction in stigma. And then separately, that I think there are lots of online tools around how we can look after ourselves better, and whether it's exercise, whether it's sleep, whether it's finding a purpose in life and trying to introduce that purpose into your day-to-day work, etc. There are lots of really powerful things that we can all do better day to day to look after ourselves. That means that we then enjoy our jobs and they become more fulfilling, and hopefully questions around stress and anxiety reduce as a result.
Thank you, sir. I think people will be finding their peer support from this moment. I think they start recognizing the social support and realize the importance of family, friends, and other social systems to watch out for social support. Seb, what will be your thoughts?
Yes, sure. Thank you. I have 3 points, also really quick. I think since we're talking about people's professions, I really like that. I think it's really about changing the perception and encourage lawyers in this case to work on themselves, so they can be the best version of themselves at work as well. And I like seeing both professions as a therapist. I feel like I help people from the inside, and as a lawyer, we help people from the outside. And I think the combination of both is beautiful and is really something that we need to promote. And then a second point is just to follow up on Dr. Antani's idea of empathy. I think this is something that we see a lot now. We talk about leaders needing to be more empathetic, more vulnerable. It's everywhere, but in reality, in the law firms, in the everyday life, this is not what is actually happening. So, we should encourage people to be more vulnerable, to be more empathetic, and encourage them, because it takes a lot of courage to be vulnerable and to be empathetic. And I think those are the people who should be promoted rather than necessarily the best performers. in a team, for example. And my last point is to also invite more people to events like this so they can share their stories and raise awareness, to make sure that those who listen to exchanges like this and who might be going through a tough time feel that they're not alone and that they can get the help they need.
Indeed, that there are beautiful points highlighted, and I congratulate your transaction actually. And I hope you have a way forward in Switzerland, and we do take your points to make a way forward here in India. And I think I always say this, that I like the chess from a perspective of metaphoric, that whoever beats the king, the queen, we know who's the queen. And I think London is doing much work on that idea. And I congratulate London as a country, Chris, sir, as you as well, that you are doing so great work. And coming to India, I think we are good aping. So we are maybe, taking some time, but we'll be realizing soon. Antani sir, yes, since you have talked about so many steps that you have taken, rather than, just talking about them, that you have made it happen is a big thing, in India especially. So I would like to congratulate you for that first, and then move forward for your thinking.
Sure, two things. Let me first talk to the senior management of a law firm or a counsel practice. I'll be very brief. Don't complicate simple things, rather simplify complicated things, because simplicity has a lot of power. That is the message I want to give to senior management. And the lawyers, we'll have a lot of lawyers who will be in-house counsels or professionals, or could be law firm students also. Carpe diem. Seize today, I think, don't think too much of future. Believe in yourself. And as Seb mentioned, believe in yourself and talk to people, share with people. And I think once you do that, things will be fine in order and no problems would be there. That's on my side. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And, I would encourage more people who are watching this to really critically think, not just followingly think, critically think about the points which have been highlighted during the session, what have been, talked about. There are some people who are doing really good work out in the country, out in the world. We just have to, gather those power and energy together to make a real change happen. And that's where we stand today. The change is happening. That is why it is so uncomforting. So whenever you find things are uncomforting, there are two things. Either it's a time for conflict, and conflict will always call for change. And if you stay fixed-minded by saying that, oh, I can't change, this is not going to happen to me or something, this will not progress. So second thing is that you always think towards progression rather than regression. And education is an ongoing process. It doesn't stop after 12th or BA or MA or whatever degree that you have attained. So with this, I close this panel discussion. And I think it was quite motivating. Being the youngest, I think here I feel rather motivated for my purpose from now on. Thank you.
I think we are looking for a day that we don't need October 10. That's all.